and has been writing from the region for more than 10 years. Lisa, thank you for joining us. What do you make of Trump's announcement today?
Well, it was very much, there are quite a few ways of looking at it. I would say off the top, it's very much in line with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's rhetoric on the issue. I think that also you have to look at it from the perspective of what it means in practice and what it means in theory. So what it means in practice is not a lot will change on the ground. The embassy might or might not be moved in a few years. The peace process has been frozen since 2001, pretty much. But what it does say, but symbolically, this is very important. What it says is that, first of all, as my colleague at 972 magazine, Noam Shehzad, has written today, it says that for the right wing, it's a symbol of facts on the ground being more effective than diplomacy. And it also symbolizes to the Palestinians that the Americans are overtly on the side of the Israelis. And so what it means is that the Palestinians have even less leverage than they had previously when it comes to negotiating on the same level as the Israelis.
You mentioned it there, you touched on it there in terms of leveraging. This decision by Trump, it's a huge boost for Israel in the negotiations. Do you think we're going to see, and perhaps we've already seen,
yes,
an increased rhetoric from Netanyahu and a strength from Netanyahu that he didn't necessarily have before?
Netanyahu has been on very strong footing for many years now. I don't think that really changes a lot in terms of negotiations because there haven't been negotiations for years. But what this does, what Trump's statement does do, is really shore up Netanyahu's standing with his base. And Netanyahu's base, as I've written several times, is very similar in its makeup and worldview as Trump's base. That is, they're reactionary, very right-wing and populist. So, you know, what Netanyahu has done is said to his base, look, the president of the United States is on my side. He agrees with what I've been saying to you for years, which is that Jerusalem is our undivided capital. The Palestinians can't have it. There's not going to be any negotiations over dividing Jerusalem ever, and the president has my back. So what that does for Netanyahu is give him a ton of domestic strength. And it also gives Trump quite a lot of domestic strength with his base. As you probably know, and as your viewers probably know, a significant portion of Trump's political power is derived from the evangelical Christians, the right-wing evangelical Christians in the United States, who are Zionists, Zionists of a very bizarre kind because their faith is based on an eschatological belief that the second coming of Christ will occur after Armageddon, which means the destruction of the state of Israel. But for Trump's purpose, the nature of their belief doesn't really matter, nor does it matter for Netanyahu. What does matter is that Trump has shown to his base that he keeps his promises. One of his campaign promises was that he would move the embassy to Jerusalem. By the way, every U.S. president since Jimmy Carter has made that promise and then reneged, which is why no one really took Trump seriously. So what Trump has done with an announcement that might or might come to pass about moving the embassy, he's vaguely said in a few years, what Trump has done is effectively told his base, you see, unlike previous presidents, when I say something, I do it. And that's a very, very effective sort of power-building measure with a populist leader like Trump and with a populist leader like Netanyahu.
Despite everything that he said today, Trump says he still wants to bring peace to the Middle East. He said he'll support a two-state solution. But he didn't say, he stopped short of saying that he would broker that two-state solution. Do you think it would be possible for a US president who had recognised Jerusalem as Israel's capital to then go ahead and broker a two-state solution? Or do you think that's too far-fetched?
You know, at this point, to be really frank, I mean, the Americans have been pretty much taking the Israeli side in negotiations for a very, very long time. And the Palestinians have said that many times. Whether or not what could the Palestinians possibly say to President Trump, if he were to say, well, I'm putting together a delegation to come over and broker a peace deal between you and the Israelis. If the Palestinians were to say, well, no, we're not going to sit at the same table with the Israelis and the Americans because the Americans have said they're not on our side by declaring Jerusalem Israel's capital and not the Palestinians, well, then Trump and Netanyahu can turn around and say, look at those Palestinians. They're so recalcitrant. They refuse to sit at the same table with us. Here we came to them and said, we want to talk about a two-state solution. Let's sit at the table. And the Palestinians said, no, well, we wash our hands of the matter. We've offered them a solution. They've said no, so we're turning our backs. So the Palestinians are really in a very difficult position right now. They really, as I said at the beginning of this set, they don't have much leverage.
Lisa Goldman, great to have your analysis. Lisa Goldman there from the New America Foundation.